And welcome into the Wednesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. Appreciate Luke Bryan for welcoming us in to the show today. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
Thanks, Luke. You pair that with, I just looked up at the TV and I saw Joe Burrow with his M&M head. There's a lot of unsettling things happening in the world today.
Somebody did a side-by-side. So apparently Burrow, like a couple of weeks ago, was at some fashion week, whatever, in Paris or somewhere. You know, he's looking all fancy and had, the swoof in the hair and all that. And then he showed up yesterday looking like Eminem from 2002. It was quite something.
Yeah, why? So he did bleach it?
I mean, he did.
It looks like
it looked like he did.
Yeah. Some kids at our high school do that. What are you doing, Joe?
Maybe that means they're winning the Super Bowl this year. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, look,
it was an interesting look.
Going shorter during this time of year, I
sure.
get it.
Yeah.
But man, what a beautiful mane that just got cut there.
Yeah, as somebody who doesn't have hair, when people who do get rid of it, bothers me a little bit.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that.
Which is why you have great hair. Look at you.
Yeah, I mean, I keep the lettuce, I have to have some lettuce. I did just get a haircut, but I don't cut it too short.
Nick Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
I'm doing well. By the way, it was Vogue that Burrow was
Vogue.
doing. He did it with Jamar Chase, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Vogue is where they were.
Yeah. That's how they kickstarted things off.
Like Vogue magazine?
Yep, they did. Yeah.
But they went to Paris to do a shoot for Vogue magazine.
That's correct.
Wow.
So how about that?
Impressive. Okay.
And then you go off and cut your hair all off your head immediately after. Good for you, Joe.
Yep. Good luck.
Hope things go well.
Maybe you'll stay healthy with less hair.
Maybe so. We got a lot to get into on the program today. We will have Paul Kuharski 1 hour earlier than normal. So PK will be in from 7 to 8 with us on the program today. Some obviously Titans things going on right around 9 o'clock, 9:15. So PK will be with us an hour earlier than normal today from 7 to 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on the Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, Anthony Robinson press conference yesterday and his thoughts on the state of the Titans as a whole as we're set to begin the first day of training camp on the field today. Joe Rexrode, you were there yesterday for Brian Callahan, or Mr. Callie, whatever you want to call him, Rand Carthon and Anthony Robinson. We're going to get into a lot of different topics kind of individually, but generally your thoughts on what you heard yesterday from Callahan, Carthon, and Robinson.
Yeah, so the news items, there's some news items. I think, pretty decent actually for the Titans. The fact that PUP, you start with Nicholas Petit-Frere, but it sounds like it's very minor.
Yeah.
I guess you could, I heard Stilly, it's another injury. But, apparently he had a little cleanup on a knee. I think that's probably better than, the shoulder from last, December or November?
Yeah, November, I think.
Yeah, I think November.
I would agree.
Is still an issue. Yeah, like a little cleanup of a knee. That you actually would prefer that. So it's supposed to be a couple days. So that's good. Obviously, it'd be better if he was ready to take the field today. But Mr. Callie made it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal. So there's that. There's a little bit of confirmation. I mean, a lot of the questions, I think all the questions we talked about yesterday were asked one way or the other. And so L'Jarius Sneed will have some kind of a maintenance plan. Yep. Wasn't specified, but he'll have some kind of a maintenance plan. You've got the we'll talk more about it, but the starters in the preseason, confirmation there that's going to happen. Interesting too, it will not be, some people think about like second preseason game being maybe like the new third game, the new dress rehearsal. Well, that won't happen for the Titans because that's the week they're doing the Seahawks. And he did say that will be the game he'll have less of the starters just because they just took part in those two practices with the Seahawks. He also said Mason Rudolph, Malik Willis, they will have a equal chance at the backup job. So there you go. I don't think that's like, look, at some point a decision's made. I think it would definitely be an upset if Malik Willis passes Mason Rudolph to be QB2. But, at some point, Mason Rudolph probably needs more reps and all that and get him ready. But,
I don't expect the coach to say anything different on the eve of training camp.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, but the reps I expect to follow that too, and not just be coach speak. I mean, I think the reps. I mean, I don't think he's going to say that and then not do the reps that way. But I think Rudolph will be the backup, and at some point we'll probably get more of those reps. You've got T'Vondre Sweat. I mean, I think that's one of the better pieces of news. He's all good to go.
Yep.
He was asked about the conditioning test, and he just said he's ready to roll. Looks good. So sounds like he did that. I mean, I think passing the conditioning test. If you don't pass the conditioning test, that's a real problem. So it's not like it's some huge achievement to do that, but still, just confirmation that he's healthy. He's passed his stuff. He's going to be out there today. He'll be one of the most followed players today because obviously everybody's going to try to see if they can, be like a carnival barker and guess his weight.
Yes.
But that was good news.
Still silly to bring a scale today.
Oh, yeah.
Never quite got Aaron Brewer to step on it. Maybe we can get T'Vondre Sweat to step on it.
By the way, TD almost made me drive off the road last week. He was talking about at practices how he loves when Stilley's like behind the goalpost and he's saying good or he's like, and then his little shirt comes up his belly. It's like Winnie the Pooh. I almost seriously crashed my car.
That's good stuff.
My goodness.
Speaking of kicking, Ryan Stonehouse looks like he's going to be ready to go to start camp. Both Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon saying the last step in his rehab process is basically the mental side of things, feeling a rush. And obviously he's not going to get hit in training camp, and hopefully he's not going to get hit in a game again. That would be great. But that next step of feeling pressure around you, having to get the punt off quickly, says he's kicking the ball well, and Ryan Stonehouse ready to go at the start of camp. So I'm a little surprised by that. I thought it may take some time for Stonehouse before he would be ready, but it looks like Stonehouse is in a good spot heading into camp.
Yeah, and Carthon said he was in the building more than anybody in the offseason, like 7 days a week, being there on a Sunday and working really hard to get himself ready. So, yeah, that seems like good news. You don't want it to be rushed, but certainly the trainers have been involved in this and stuff, and I don't think they're going to let him overstep on that. So that's a big deal for sure. You also have the little bit of talk about Jamal Adams yesterday. I don't know. Apparently, I did not take from that Jamal Adams is starting at safety. I don't at all take it from that. I guess Jared did, but another safety, and also he concluded that what the answer were that they weren't going to sign another safety. I don't take that from the answers either.
It's a mind bending going on.
I mean, some of these things, like what? How did that? Okay, let me go back and listen to it again. How did you take from that? No, I don't take from that they're definitely not signing another safety. Yeah, they said they talked in generalities. Oh, in every position could be, sure. That's coach speak, that's GM speak, but there was no confirmation yesterday that they're not signing another safety. That's silly. But Callahan did talk about going against Adams previously and how he can be a problem and all that stuff. And, people in this league definitely remember him when he used to be good. And DeAndre Hopkins, that one, I did kind of read the same thing into it, which was, like Carthon was at TD asked Carthon about talking about an extension.
Yep.
And he talked, he was general. He didn't want to get into it. Not going to talk about our negotiating. And Jared did good job. Asked him, is Hopkins one of those guys? He said, there's a lot of guys like, is Hopkins one of those guys? And he's like, he's on the team. And he kind of laughed. I think certainly. And one thing Rand said was he's very straightforward. They've had some straightforward conversations. I'm sure that I'd love to hear those conversations about this extension.
Yeah.
How about 20 this time? How about 20, Rand?
Yep.
20 for 25. But I get this. I do get the sense that that's definitely a possibility.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought that answer was pretty interesting. A couple other things on the Callahan front. Basically said the competition on the right side of the offensive line, meaning guard and tackle, is going to be open the whole camp, and said, I think, quote, you probably won't hear who's going to start there until the opening game, to be honest. Those will be open jobs. That's a competition. Competition raises the level of performance, all that stuff. We'll see if it actually plays out that way, and there's not a starter that we know until the opening game here. But I don't think there's any doubt that, right guard, right tackle could take a while to really identify as to who's going to be the two guys there. And then didn't really want to get into the naming a starter at running back either. Like basically talked about how they're gonna use Spears and Pollard a lot. They're gonna deploy both of those guys, and didn't really get into the naming a starter part of it at running back either.
Yeah, and I think that's how it is. I don't
I do
think.
too.
Yeah, like I think that's not just coach speak. I mean, sure, it's like with anything, you want guys to think they're in a competition, even if they aren't, and you want as much competition as possible, as much motivation as possible. But I've always looked at the running back position since they added Pollard as basically 1A, 1B, take your choice on who's out there first. And then I think some games it'll probably be different in terms of who gets more snaps and touches. The competition on the right side is interesting. It's hard for me to buy that they're actually like both of those spots are just going to be totally up in the air the whole time. I mean, look, at some point, they're going to do team stuff here pretty soon. And then someone's going to be a 1 at both. And then we'll see if it changes, but if it doesn't change, then yeah, they could still be in competitions and maybe, the reps are, maybe they rotate guys in and things like that. But I would just guess that there will be clarity. He did say you'd like to have the clarity, but I mean, I guess it's just like right now predicting to go all the way to game week, like you don't know. How could you know that?
Yeah, I mean,
how could you know that someone isn't going to emerge? That often happens.
Someone may run away with the job in a week and a half here. I mean, it's
right.
Just I think his point is you just kind of have to see how it plays out.
They don't know now.
They don't know now, but that could change quickly. Could be a while. We'll see. I would assume if it takes if it takes a while, that could be one of two things. It could be really good where it's like, oh golly, these 2 or 3 guys are playing well, or it's, man, is anybody going to take the starting right tackle job? It's not good.
Right. And I mean, if you talk to any offensive line coach, the 5 guys together getting work is definitely important.
Yes.
I mean, that's probably as important an aspect of what Callahan was talking about with the preseason games as anything, right? Is the offensive line having some drives together to try to see how they function as a unit. So it is, but it's like it's technically, I guess 3 guys at each spot, but then they added, Jerron Christian, who you could make him a 4th guy. If you want to go Ojukwu, you could make that a 5th guy at right tackle. So, I mean, there's a glut of possibilities.
Training camp starts today. Titans are on the field. We'll take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Your Titans questions. We'll have more thoughts from Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, Anthony Robinson yesterday as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Guys, obviously, that probably need as much work as they can get, others that maybe don't need as much. How do you kind of structure that maybe in camp?
Yeah, I think the thing is they all need the football work when the pads come on, and you only get so many padded practices, and so there's a time and a place for all the guys to need work, and I think that even guys like Hop and Jeffrey that played a long time and been very successful players, they still need the work to get ready to play. NFL football on Sundays in the regular season. So we'll balance that. I mean, there's definitely guys that'll have a little bit of maybe a period off or some reps off or even a day off here and there as the camp goes along. But the way the schedules are nowadays and the way the camp is, it's a lot different than it used to be. So, you manage guys as they need it, but they also need the work too.
As Brian Callahan yesterday at the Titans introductory press conferences heading into camp. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Yeah, I am interested to see how Brian Callahan kind of handles the camp schedule here. One thing that was also interesting to hear him talk about a little bit yesterday was the dynamic warm-up that they do now, the stretching that goes on, trying to prevent some injuries out there. Looks like Brian Callahan and the training staff trying to make some adjustments.
Yeah, not just doing stretching. It's dynamic. It's kind of like jazzercise.
Yeah.
If you are familiar with jazzercise. By the way, rest in peace, Richard Simmons.
Yes.
The OG of home exercise.
No doubt about it. No, like I heard that yesterday, and they spent like 2.5 minutes talking about dynamic warm-ups. So interesting use of press conference time yesterday. But I did think it was interesting, and I something obviously needs to be done, right? I mean, they've had a lot of injuries the last 3 years. So anything you could do to try to change that up a little bit, I guess I'm all for if I'm a Titans fan.
Yeah, and I don't like they're not the only team that does that stuff.
They're not.
It's again, every time this comes up, the football in this league it's all stolen. They all steal from each other, but it's also very proprietary, very competitive, very cutthroat, spy versus spy. The medical information and techniques and things like that are not generally approached the same way.
Yeah. A lot of discussing of information going on. These basically confirmation yesterday from Callahan that Snead's going to be on a plan, and kind of reiterated what Rand Carthon did when they originally signed him, which was the goal is to get him out there on Sundays. As long as he's out there on Sundays, he did this last year and he was able to play pretty much every snap for Kansas City. So we heard more of that yesterday from Brian Callahan, which tells me, Joe, that I don't know how much of L'Jarius Sneed we're going to see in training camp. I'm sure hopefully we'll see some, I think, but I don't know how regular of an appearance L'Jarius Sneed's going to make out there in training camp.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And I don't know exactly. It's not like he just didn't take part in camp last year for the Chiefs. He did, but he definitely missed chunks of time. So there definitely wasn't clear. I wouldn't have expected there to be like any real clarity. I'm sure some of it is going to be reacting to how he's feeling, right? Like after a week or after a day, it's like, I mean, you're going to react either way, right? To how it feels. So there's no clear plan discussed. I think he's going to be out there some, though. I mean, I would expect to see him out there some.
Yeah.
The days he's out there, those are the special days, I guess.
I guess
so.
So.
We'll see.
Well, I mean, one of the matchups in camp from a position on position standpoint that I certainly would be interested in would be those three wide receivers. And look, you can throw Burks in there if you want to against that corner group, right? Like it's in terms of training camp matchups. I mean, it's training camp, so I'm not going to put too much into it, but I would love to see, Hopkins going up against the Woozy and Ridley going up against Snead. Like that sounds fun to me. Like give me as much of that as you can possibly have in Titans training camp.
Exactly. And those are real matchups. You have matchups, of course, of pass pro and pass rushers. It's not like full contact. It's pretty much a pretty good look at it, which apparently it's going well for Andre Dillard already.
Yeah.
in your Packers.
I saw, Packers Twitter yesterday. They got a bunch of fans out there watching. It was the middle of a monsoon yesterday, so it's just raining. And all these Packers writers are tweeting about, it's like, Rashawn Gary, a sack. Rashawn Gary, another sack. Rashawn Gary's got 3 sacks on 4 plays.
He's amazing.
And I was like, okay, well, I know Rashawn Gary is really good. Who in the world is he going up against? And then the next tweet I saw was, Andre Dillard cannot block Rashawn Gary. It's like, well, yeah, guys, I could have told you that.
It's amazing.
Way to go, Andre. Picking right up where you left off, baby. Consistency.
He is the most and I get it to a point. It's just like what they were talking about last year. All the traits of the size. He's got, that's why he's a first-round pick. But at some point, don't you realize someone can't play at all?
That's what I was in my Packers group chat last night, and my comment was, I would just love to know what tape they've seen that makes them say, yeah, Andre Dillard, come on in.
Yeah.
I'd love to know.
Well, look, in all seriousness, if Andre Dillard wanted to pick through last year's tape, I mean, you can eliminate the 15 horrific plays and probably find some good reps, right?
Probably more than that.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, 25, 30, whatever it is. Like you could put yourself you could put yourself together a good tape, but like how do you ignore the bad?
I don't know. I don't know. But hey, it's just training camp.
Hey, getting Rashawn Gary some confidence.
Rashawn Gary's gonna be ready to go.
But yeah,
that
would be so obviously, yeah, I want to see Landry going at JC Latham, and Arden Key is mostly over that side, and that's a good look for sure. And that's a good look for him. It's not an elite guy, but it's a good look.
Yeah.
Different kind of, you want to see different kinds of looks though, because I think Arden Key is a little bit like, once you kind of get what he does, you kind of know it. Whereas, maybe some of these other young guys can give him different looks.
I think we may have discovered the key to unlocking no pun intended, to unlocking Arden Key's potential this year. Just have somebody on the sideline hold up a picture like one of those fat heads of Kuharski, and Key will get so mad that he'll just bull rush everybody. He'll be good to go.
Kuharsk.
Yeah.
That damn Kuharsk.
Kuharsk right up there on top. That'll be the way to go. Ed on the text line. I wonder what the conversation with Burks was like. Was it a come to Jesus meeting? Red Carthon did mention a conversation with he and Traylon Burks that he and Callahan had heading into the offseason. Said that Burks has responded very well. Apparently is sending in pictures of his physique to Rand Carthon and the Titans.
Yeah, more talk of pictures of Traylon.
Yeah, a lot of talk about pictures of Traylon this offseason.
Insta model.
But he apparently has responded the right way. And, Carthon went on yesterday about how he's still a young guy, and now he's got 3 veteran guys to learn from in front of him. I thought it was a lot of nice speak from Carthon yesterday on Traylon Burks, and we'll see if, number one, he can stay healthy and if he can make any sort of impact on the team.
Yeah, and no, I don't think it was like a come to Jesus meeting. I mean, Traylon Burks, again, I think he's tried to do the right things. Again, he was all ready to rock a year ago, and it was performing well, and it hasn't happened for him in games. Is that on him? It's got to be partially on him for sure, right? It's got to be partially on him, but it may just be he may just not be good enough. Like I don't think that there's like some issue of Traylon needing to work harder or whatever. I mean, I think more than anything, they probably want to rebuild his confidence. And then again, will he be healthy? Well, is he going to avoid one of these awful injuries that he keeps having over and over in games? So, that at this point though, it's not like you have to have a hard conversation with him. You just draft and sign over him and kind of, change where he is in the pecking order,
which is what they've done. And now we'll see how he responds to it. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Again, Paul Kuharski will be with us 1 hour earlier today, normally on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. Today, from 7 to 8, with the Titans getting rolling a little bit earlier this morning. So PK coming up here in about 30 minutes. Coming up next, it is time for The Choice is Yours. I got a Titans edition of The Choice is Yours for you. Get ready. We'll do that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
We all have choices to make. Like right now, the choice is yours. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is time for The Choice is Yours. We'll take your participation, as always, on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. A Titans edition of The Choice is Yours today. I'm up in the questions chair. Let's start with this question. I tried to pick the right amount of games here to make it somewhat challenging. Here we go. T'Vondre Sweat and L'Jarius Sneed will both play 12-plus games for the Titans this year. T'Vondre Sweat, L'Jarius Sneed, both of them will play 12-plus games for the Titans this year. Yes or no? How do we feel?
I'll go yes.
Okay.
And Sweat hasn't had missing game injury issue. I mean, for him, he had whatever he had in the spring. It's the weight and it's the shape. But at this point, I'm important guy. I'll just guess health. I mean, any kind of predictions with any team, you're guessing health. And then Sneed, like Callahan said yesterday, the model they did last year allowed him to play almost every snap last season. So at some point, there might be a 7-game season coming up for him. But at this point, I gotta guess. Yeah, I would go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's early. I think they both play in 12 games this year. 12's tough because kept thinking to myself for a second there, can Sneed make it? Like, that's my more of a concern here is, can he actually make it to 12 games? I mean, I hope so. Sweat should, no exceptions, because he's very young and, today's a start to see if he's available for
Well, that's the
camp or
thing.
not,
Like,
so.
we're going to find out more about Sweat, I think, here in the next couple of weeks, right? Like, I'd like to see him get through camp. Like, get through camp, be available, be healthy through camp. Look, the Sneed stuff is concerning, right? Like, it's regardless of the fact that he played in every game last year. That's great. And ultimately, Carthon and Callahan are right. That's the only thing that matters is if he plays in the games. But the fact that you're having to go to this length to get him to be available to play does make me worried to death that at some point it's like a ticking time bomb and it's not gonna work anymore.
Yeah, well, and that's where it's going to be interesting. Is what is the program?
Yeah,
is it like he's missing a day a week, or is it like we'll see you every once in a while? He's like Punxsutawney Phil out here.
Yeah. I'm gonna go
I don't
no.
know. You're gonna go no.
I'm gonna go no. I don't think both of them will play 12-plus games.
Okay, you got to remember these things.
Well, write them down.
Write it down.
The mental checklist. Just like last year, we did the Hopkins versus Burks, who will have more yards.
Yeah,
I wrote that one down.
I'm glad you remember that one.
Speaking of, which Tennessee Titan will have the most receptions? Not the most yards. Which Tennessee Titan will have the most receptions this year in this offense?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
And I've heard TD go with Tyler Boyd, which I think is interesting, and certainly you can see a whole bunch of gimmies to move the chains and things like that. But I'm going to go Hopkins. I think it's Hopkins. I think he's just going to be a really high volume, possession receiver and a friendly, familiar outlet for Will Levis. You could make a case for Spears too. I think you could make a case for Ridley, but I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins.
Nick Keiser, who leads the Titans in receptions this year?
I'm going to say Calvin Ridley.
Okay.
I think Calvin has a big season for this team. I think he looks more like a wide receiver one than maybe fans, maybe had thought at the initial outset of him signing here with the Titans. So Calvin Ridley, I think, will be a surprisingly great pickup for the Titans this year.
I'll go Hopkins leading them in receptions, Ridley in yards. We talked about the yards part of it yesterday. I think Ridley is going to be more of a big play guy. Not that Ridley can't, have 75, 80 catches and move the chains and do all that stuff. It's not like he's just going to be running go routes all the time out there. But I think Hopkins, I like the chemistry that he and Levis built last year. I think that's going to still exist. I think they're going to build on that. I think Hopkins will have more catches. Ridley will have more yards. That's the way I view it.
I'm with you.
Will Levis will throw fewer than 15 interceptions this year. I went and looked at this. I didn't want to make the number too high. Didn't want to make it too low. Burrow's second year, which the Bengals got to the Super Bowl, I think he threw like 33 touchdowns and 14 picks. So kind of like right on the line of this. Will Levis will throw 15 or fewer picks this year.
Yeah, that's right around. That's a good over/under number. Of course, you could tie this to if you don't think he's going to stay healthy, then you feel good.
Well, you could.
You feel better about
You could
saying
say throw none.
he'll throw less. So last year, Will Levis threw what, 4?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so Will Levis threw 4, and he threw that in how many?
Played 9 games.
So he played 9 games. So that's half. So half a season, 255 attempts. He threw 4 picks.
They're going to be throwing more this year.
They are going to be throwing more this year, no doubt about it. He still is, despite that number. He had some would-be picks that didn't turn out to be picks. I'll go over. I'll say he'll be a little bit over that.
Okay. A little bit over 15.
I tend to agree with that sentiment as well. I'm just thinking of maybe previous quarterbacks that are in a pass-heavy offense that are younger. I don't know. And I think just until we see that true consistency from him, I mean, it is going to be difficult to not throw, I think, 15. So Will Levis, I think he'll have a very productive season, but 15 picks, I think, seems pretty reasonable to achieve this year for a guy that's in his second year.
I'll go under. Barely. I think he ends up 13, 14, somewhere in that neighborhood, but I'll go slightly under. I think part of the help on that is the offense and getting the ball out quickly and knowing where to go with it. I hope you see some strides from him there this year. You're right. Like, I think he probably deserved to throw a few more picks than he actually did last year. We talked about that even dating back to his college days of, every now and then there's some errant throws, but more importantly than that, some decisions that you're just like, oh, I don't know about that, man. So that's got to get better as he moves forward here. But I'll go under. I mean, Kyle from Shelbyville on the text line says 40 touchdowns, 15 picks. I think you'd sign up for that right now if you're the Titans.
Oh, I think you would. Well, if you want to go real quick by interception percentage leaders last year, C.J. Stroud led the league 1.0%. Then Pickett 1.2, Carr 1.5, Prescott 1.5, Lamar 1.5, Herbert 1.5, Levis 7th, tied with Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow at 1.6.
Between those
That's
numbers,
pretty good,
and his red zone efficiency, which Warren Sharp pointed out a few weeks ago, I feel pretty good about it. Feel pretty good about the under.
You can find some stats that'll tell you it's just he'll be out of a job by week 3 too, if you want.
Ryan Tannehill will be on a roster by week 1. Yes or no? Ryan Tannehill will be on an NFL roster by week 1.
At this point, I have to think he must be considering just hanging it up. Made a lot of money, got a young family. He's gotten increasingly banged up. When he came to Nashville, he'd already had a serious knee and shoulder injury. So I'm going to guess no. I do think that he's been selective to try to find a place where he could at least, if not start, if not be a bridge starter, at least maybe have a real opportunity because the starter is vulnerable. But I could see him at this point not wanting to be the clipboard guy for a few years and make a few more $1 million. So I'm going to say no.
Not on week 1, but I think he will land on a roster at some point.
That is my answer too. I think this is just a total guess. Obviously, I'm not.
He's going to do the Flacco thing from the couch.
Yeah, like I'm not talking. I'm not obviously not speaking to Ryan Tannehill when he's out there on the boat drinking Celsius, whatever he's doing. But like I could see the starter goes down. Somebody needs a veteran quarterback. They feel like they're still on the doorstep of winning something, and they call him. I could see that.
And that's
and that may be what he's waiting for. I don't know.
Absolutely. So you stay in shape, you stay ready, and that's look. Last year when Cleveland lost Deshaun Watson and they went to Flacco, I was like, Flacco, really, Flacco, and he was really good. Tannehill this year, if that is what he does, like it's a very good option. I mean, relative to like in a lot of seasons when people are like, Phil Rivers, I know you have 93 kids and you're coaching all of them in soccer, but can you come out here, gol darn it?
Well, think about last year. Like, Aaron Rodgers went down 4 plays into the year. think they had like Ryan Tannehill out there on the streets just ready to go get.
I think it's a quick.
Yeah.
It's a gimme.
Yeah.
So no, I think I like that. I like that mindset. That's a good thought. I think that's a now, hopefully no one gets hurt.
Yeah,
You
we're
know,
not wishing
but-
injury on anybody, but
But
the odds are
reality of
somebody's
this-
going to get
yeah,
hurt.
The reality of this league is there's going to be some kind of opportunity.
I got a text that says offensive coach, better receivers. Hey, 2 touchdowns a game is 34. At least that. People are going a high bar for Levis.
Okay.
34 touchdowns. Cal said 40.
I think he'll be into the 30s in TDs and around 17, 18 picks and close to 4,000 yards, which is a pretty good year.
That's a pretty good year. I mean, what did Stroud have last year? Like Stroud, I don't think threw for that many touchdowns last year, if memory serves me correctly. And of course, I can't find his Pro Football Reference page at the moment because the internet's not working. But
Oh, good.
I think he was like 23.
I got you. Yeah. So he threw 23 picks. I mean, only or 23 touchdowns. Only threw 5 picks.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But those are interesting numbers. He threw 4,100 yards. He had 499 attempts. So it's not like he didn't throw, but they just didn't throw picks. And not a lot of TDs. Kind of interesting numbers.
Very interesting. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Speaking of interesting, a brilliant capital J journalism question from Joe Rexrode yesterday to Brian Callahan, which we'll get into coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on Charlotte. Pregame at 6:20, first pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds baseball presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Cottle Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will be with us for the 7 o'clock hour. 1 hour earlier today for PK. Titans getting rolling a little bit earlier this morning. So PK will be with us from 7 to 8, talking all things Tennessee Titans. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. A capital J journalism question by Joe Rexrode yesterday, who works for the people gets to the bottom of things for the people. And you brought this up with Brian Callahan yesterday about his plan for the preseason and how many starters we could see, what that plan rotation could look like once preseason games come around. Here's what Brian Callahan had to say yesterday on that front.
Preseason games, but do you have a framework in mind in terms of starters and how much you want them in this game, that game?
Yeah, those conversations we've kind of started between Rand and I, and working through what that's going to look like. I'll hesitate to say anything now because it could change. I don't want to pin myself down to one thing, but I do. Our team needs to play together. They need to play football together. We need to operate on offense and to operate on defense. We got a lot of new faces and new people here, so that's an important part of the preseason to me. So our starters will play. They'll play enough. Is probably the best way to put it. And then just philosophically, when we practice against the Seahawks for 2 days, they'll probably play less in that game because they'll get a bunch of heavy work for 2 days against them anyway in practice. But I do see our starters will probably play in all 3 games, and we'll see what that looks like lengthwise. But we need to play together and operate together and play some football before we get started.
So I thought that was interesting from Brian Callahan yesterday. I mean, it seems like on the surface that it's going to be a different approach than we've seen from Vrabel the last few years as it relates to starters in the preseason. And, we've talked about this before. I mean, look, Kenny Pickett and the Steelers got out there and played in the preseason last year and looked like they might be the greatest show on turf, and then couldn't move the football at all once the actual season came around. So I don't know how much actual correlation there is between starters playing in the preseason and that meaning that you start off well in the regular season. But I do agree with him from the standpoint of you have a very young offensive line, you have a young quarterback, you have a bunch of new pieces that you've added in the offseason, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, that are going to need live reps together in order to get up to speed quickly. So it sounds like it's going to be a different approach from Brian Callahan than we're used to seeing in the preseason.
Yeah, and so I would think a lot of Titans fans would like to hear that and would be excited about it. And I get it, especially if you are being asked to pay any money to go to these preseason games, without question. I mean, wasn't it? Didn't like Vrabel say one time like Tannehill was gonna play in a game and then he didn't? I think that happened, right? Like,
I think so.
Come on. I just personally I wouldn't do it.
I think he did play. I think he got out there.
Did he go out there
off 3 times and then was out of there?
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Come on.
He got out there.
He did. Technically, he played. I personally would be petrified of doing too much with my starters in preseason games at this point. And I think, Vrabel changed on that too from the beginning pretty quickly. And I understand, look, a lot of the worst injuries that happen to these guys is just an odd plant, non-contact in some drill in practice. And that's how a lot of the ACLs happen. So, and Achilles happen that way. So, there's a lot of different ways you can get hurt. I still would be pretty afraid of it. But I agree. I think with the offense, especially, because like the defense, they need work and all that stuff. I'm not.
Jeffrey Simmons doesn't need
I'm not a big fan of those guys tackling people to the ground. And plus, there isn't really game planning in the preseason games. People are just working on their stuff. So, I don't think there's a ton of value in a defense being out there together. I do think that the offensive line working together, and like Levison's receivers. But again, Levison's receivers, that's daily. Yeah. So does it matter if they're in a game where they're tackling to the ground now?
Main thing is the line, I think.
I think so too.
Well,
that's where it probably makes sense to do a few series. Yeah. Like that first game, you would think, do a decent chunk of the first half. But then, the minute someone gets concussed or whatever, or all of a sudden the shoulders hurt and they're looking at the sideline, you're like, it's a freaking preseason game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a risk that comes with it. But, I mean, like you said, you can go through a 7-on-7 drill and somebody plants the wrong way and then their season's over. I mean, it happens. Unfortunately, that will happen to somebody in the league this year, right? I mean, there will be somebody that is a relatively big name player that gets hurt in training camp and they're done for half a season or done for the whole year. I mean, it happens every year. So I think there's always some risk. You want to mitigate it as much as you can. And again, we've gotten so much from listeners the last couple of years of starters should play more in the preseason. If starters played more in the preseason, they'd be ready to go quicker. You think back to the Giants game a couple years ago at home where it was a slow start.
Yep.
And the Saints game last year, Tannehill couldn't hit the broadside of a barn last year in that game.
There's been some bad performances overall in the last 3 openers.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of conversation about preseason.
And I just need to see the alternative reality of they played those guys a few more series in the preseason, and all of a sudden it's different. It's possible. I don't know. I can't sit here and say there's just no way. I have my doubts. I think that rust in a real football game is very possible. This is not something that's worth my time. If anybody out there, PK's walking in the studio, maybe he can do this. Have you ever done the correlation, PK, between,
he's coming in very quietly too,
between starters and how much they play and how much that translates to an opening game of a season?
If it translated a lot, Kenny Pickett would still be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers because he looked like a world beater in preseason last year.
Exactly.
It's just, look, I'm sure it helps. There are some people that would rather play. Rodgers has talked about this before in terms of he likes playing in the preseason. And he likes getting out there with the starting unit and going through the game motions.
And knowing you're going and knowing you're going to get hit
and
to
knowing
the
you're
ground.
probably going to get hit.
The only time you're going to get hit to the ground and have that kind of real threat is during that time. So I get it.
So I'm sure there's value. I'm sure that there's value. And some guys probably don't want any part of the preseason. It probably just depends on your personal preference. But with this offensive line and with a young quarterback, I think there's probably more value. There's more value in it for sure than there has been when it's been Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill that you've been trotting out there. Veteran guys.
Rodgers shouldn't play this year.
He should not. I would skip out on the preseason this year if I was him.
I'm sure he will. He probably has a trip to Belgium or something, doesn't he? Coming up.
That his coach will make an excuse for him.
Do a live
stream. No, it's very good for this team that he go to Belgium.
He and PFT
He'll bring chocolates back for everyone, and that's good for team building.
It is an unexcused absence, but he communicated it to us, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
What an organization.
Yeah, it's gonna end really well, I'm sure, this year. Be really nice for them.
What if it does? How will you be conflicted?
No. I will not.
Yeah.
It's even Super Bowl.
No warm feelings at all for Aaron Rodgers.
I like Aaron Rodgers.
All those great years.
I like Aaron Rodgers. He's a great player for a long time in Green Bay. I'm glad to be rid of him right now.
A lot of Packers fans, though, I've heard, if the Jets were to be good and get to AFC Championship stuff, would then like to see him win a Super Bowl because him winning a Super Bowl would get him even with Peyton, past Breeze. Would you like that for his legacy?
No, see, I'm more, we talked about this the other day with, what were we having a conversation, but it was Derrick Henry, right? In terms of going elsewhere and winning. I'm totally opposite. I was a big Miami Heat fan. LeBron won 2 with the Heat. I don't want him to win more than 2 anywhere else. I don't want Rodgers to win a Super Bowl somewhere else.
I did not want Dennis Rodman to win a freaking game with the Chicago Bulls.
See, there you go.
We are one.
That's part of hating the Chicago Bulls, right? But you're trying to be the gatekeeper of fans. Somebody can't root for Derrick.
Well, some of them are so dumb that they need gatekeeping.
Well, Derrick Henry got after you on Twitter the other day. What'd you think of that?
Derrick Henry and I have talked, and we're fine.
You've talked since then?
Yes.
What'd you say?
I sent him a note to make sure he knew it wasn't personal about him, that it was about fandom,
so
and he
weak.
said, "Yeah, we're cool."
Why don't you just say, "Hey, Derrick, shut up"? You have to go, "Derrick, I hope you're not mad at me." And by the way, Arden Key does not like some Paul Kuharsky.
What's that about?
Yeah, I don't know. We were so confused by this.
I mean, here's what the Titans love to do. They love to shoot off, but not say what it's about. Jeff Simmons had a huge shoot off, but he won't say who or what. And Arden Key comes at me, but he won't say what it's about.
I mean, the time
when media does that, they go crazy. Well, what's this about? Who's this about? But they can do it. It's just willy-nilly, just fire bullets all over the place, but don't say who your target is.
It was Sunday night at 9:30. I was like, what could PK have possibly done at Sunday night at 9:30 to get Arden Key so upset?
I sent him a text too. I was like, hey man, what's this about? What did I do?
What did he say?
Nothing.
Wow.
Ghosted.
You got a real problem.
Ghosted.
He must have been reacting to the Henry thing, right?
That's what I
guess.
think. But I mean, how could you read that as me having a problem with Derrick Henry?
I don't know, but apparently he did.
Another
So now
person
you
that has
gotta-
trouble reading.
Joe, you're gonna
Another
have to get
person
to
has a problem with you.
Joe, you're gonna have to get to the bottom of this.
I will try. I will if I'm able to speak with Arden Key, I will ask him what's wrong with Paul Kuharsk.
Yeah, please do.
Other than hashtag cheek peek, we all know.
What's
I
the
mean,
Harsk
there is a
He left the Y off of your name.
What's
the
the
other
Paul
day.
Kuharski? You've been using that.
You didn't see his post? He called you
Oh,
Paul
yeah.
Kuharsk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he left off the Y.
Yeah.
Well, he's being efficient.
We want to ask him why.
I can't blame
Why,
a guy.
Arden? Why?
I can't
He's
blame
leaving
a
it
guy.
out.
I can't blame a guy for being efficient.
We knew who he was talking about. He didn't need to spell the whole thing.
Yeah.
all good.
When we start this next hour, I have a few beefs with something Rexrode said already.
Okay.
A
we'll
few
get into that.
nonsensical things he said.
Oh, good.
We'll get into that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Paul Kuharski will be with us for the next hour talking all things Tennessee Titans. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com with us for the next hour, talking all things Tennessee Titans. And PK is firing out of the gate today.
Coming in hot.
Coming in hot.
Coming in hot.
Ready to go right after Joe Rexrode.
Joe said two foolish things during your Choice is Yours, which was a mildly entertaining segment
Thank you.
that I listened to in the car on my way here. One, when you were talking about leaders in receptions, he mentioned the name Tajay Spears. How could Tajay Spears lead this team in reception? Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are splitting the job. So if Tony Pollard gets hurt in game 2, Tajay Spears could conceivably have a chance. Tajay Spears is going to catch about 1.5 or 2 passes a game. He could have an outlier game with 8. But a guy that's going to catch 2.5 passes a game at max can't possibly lead this team in catches.
Okay. I'll bet you. I mean, I didn't pick him.
But you mentioned him as a possibility. He's not a
mentioned him as a
possibility.
possibility. I will bet you that he finishes within 20 receptions of the leader.
Really?
Well, that's fine. You could say finishes within 20 receptions of the leader. If there are 4 guys between him and the leader, you weren't close.
Doesn't matter. Then all you're asking is the number. You're just asking about the total number. What I'm saying is, Boyd's going to get a lot. Ridley, Hopkins, it's going to be spread around. And I think that Spears he'll have significant more catches than Pollard. That's just my guess. And you never know. Some of these, I mean, even like Mixon in that Bengals, he had some games where he caught a bunch of passes. I mean, I'm going to go look at Joe Mixon's numbers now with that Bengals offense.
It's going to be.
I don't think it's as foolish as you say.
It's
all right, what's
be in
your
the
second
50s.
one? All right, fine. Your second one better be better than that.
Second one is very dumb. It's this Tannehill thing where because once all the quarterback things filled up and he hasn't taken action when there are no jobs available, you think he's going to retire. Yeah, I think he's probably considering retirement since he hasn't taken a job, since there are no jobs available. That's the kind of thing I hear at 2:00.
This is worse than the first one. What? What the hell are you talking about?
There are no jobs for Tannehill to take now. So for you to conclude that he's considering retirement because he hasn't taken a job is silly.
No.
He's going to play this year.
No. Listen, as I said, it's well supported. He's made a ton of money in this league. I mean, he was a high pick, in 2011? I don't know what his total earnings are. We can figure that out. It's big. He's been seriously hurt. He had the ACL that he tried to heal by meditation or whatever in Miami. And then they finally, no, Ryan, you actually have to repair the ACL. He had the shoulder. He started to get banged up here, the ankle, foot, all that stuff. Yes, I absolutely think it's feasible that a guy like that is I could be a backup in this league and get into the rotation of making, go $4 million a year or whatever it is, $8 million a year, be a top backup in the league and go wherever and travel around. Or I could go be with my young family after making, 9 figures in the NFL and be happy with that.
Guys who retire at that stage, Jake Locker. Guys who don't retire at that stage, everybody else. I bet you $50 he plays this year.
But again, I'm not betting you.
Oh, no. I'm not going to put my money where my mouth is.
I didn't say he's retiring. I just actually agreed with what Robby said, which is it makes sense to sit back and wait and see when a good opportunity to actually start.
Of course it makes sense. There are no opportunities right now.
By the way,
right,
quick Google search.
But the point, I don't think he's retiring, but you dismissing that as stupid is stupid. So you're stupid. Your dismissal was stupid.
He's not
and
retired.
my point was actually good.
He's
Sorry,
not-
you lose.
He's not retired.
Quick Google search. Tannehill has made close to $196 million.
Yeah.
You know what guys who make $196 million, you know how they make it? They want more money.
So
He sees an opportunity in the next 5 years to make another 30, 45, 50, 60 million dollars, and he goes and does it. Most of them.
You're telling me that a guy who's made 196 million, who's had the injuries that I just mentioned, who is 35 years old, no way that dude would consider retiring? You don't think we can find examples of dudes in their mid to late 30s in this league who have retired?
Highly unlikely. Marcus Mariota doesn't like football, and he can't wait to sign another contract with another team.
Do you want to compare his career earnings to Tannehill's? They're not close.
No. Listen,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah,
I don't
you-
know if
no,
you know
you
guys
blew
with
it.
money.
Your sound. Let's dribble a few
He's
more
going
in
to make
there.
more than 4. I'll bet you $50 on that, too.
Put your hand down.
You had the opportunity to make a lot of money today. You're on the program.
He's not really backing up his stuff. I'd take it easy. If
I
I was
didn't
this
say-
confident, I'd take an easy $50.
I did not say he's retiring. The idea that there's no way he would consider it. By the way, Robbie agrees with me. He just, you guys like to gang up on me, so he won't say it. But
we
Robbie
like to
agrees with me.
gang
That's
up on
fine.
him.
Yeah, that's right. Poor me.
Okay, I'm with the show.
All right.
Good
you
start
blew it.
I
there
said
with
from
you
the
not
jump
betting.
that
Bad
he's
stuff.
waiting on
Bad
somebody to
You
get
gotta
hurt
bet.
and then take his job.
Exactly
That's
what
what I
he
said.
said.
Right, but we've talked about the retirement piece possibility. It's absolutely there. How would
It's
you
there
not
when
consider
nobody
it?
gets hurt and no good jobs emerge. Then he might retire if the situation's forced on him. He's not thinking, "Man, I'm dying not to play."
He's
anymore."
waiting on Vrabel to get a job. Just wait. That's what some people text line think. Well, when Vrabel gets a job, Tannehill will be the quarterback.
There you go.
The backup quarterback.
By the way, people on the text line coming to PK's defense. Maybe we can get Arden Key to get as mad at opposing quarterbacks as he did Paul. Maybe, just maybe, he might get some sacks that way. It's from JD on the text
I
line.
think that's more taking a shot at Arden than is defending Paul, but
Also,
That's a
this,
fair point.
This Henry thing that started on this show that blew up into, something that had no business blowing up into. I got it was the most supported, debatable take I ever had on Twitter. Or like 80% of the people were with me, and still, I mean, it's just such an encapsulation of what's wrong with journalism now and with Twitter. Like
Oh,
the New York Post
just
picks
shut
it up and says Henry fires back at critic. I wasn't critical of Henry at all.
oh really? I
And-
gotta find this. I didn't see
I
that.
did see
And was he
yes.
firing back at me when he said, "Go find something
Go
to
find
do,
something
Paul"?
to do, Paul.
That's a funny line. But he's not firing back. He didn't take my hat. Arden Key was firing back.
Yes, he was.
I don't know at what, but he was firing back. Go find something to do is funny.
By the way, Joe, Joe Mixon had 60 receptions in 2022. That's 52 last
And what
year.
did Jamar
yeah.
Chase have?
I don't know. I need to go look, but probably more than 60.
Well, yeah. If the Titans had Jamar Chase, I would definitely pick him. They don't.
They say that they're using
Spoiler,
Calvin Ridley.
they don't.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Rexrode taking shots this morning at Calvin Ridley.
No.
I hope he's listening as he drives in.
What
Will
is
he have
your
an
answer?
Instagram
though?
post?
But what is your answer, Paul, on that question?
Hopkins.
Okay. So you actually agree with me.
Chase had 87 that year, by the way. That Mixon had 60.
Okay.
Mixon had 52 last year. Chase had 100.
I think it'll be Hopkins.
I mean, he could have taken the bet, be within 20, but he blew it.
He could have.
There is something you're willing to put money on? Because he came across so far
I
today
said it, and you,
as incredibly cheap and scary.
yeah, you're asking me
to
to
put your money
you're
where
asking
your
me to
mouth
bet
is.
on something I didn't say. I'll bet you. I didn't say he's going to retire. Oh, let's bet. I didn't say he's going to retire. But good idea. No, actually, the Spears thing was probably the better of the two things that you ripped me on. By the way, since we're on this topic, we were going to talk about it later, but since you're in here, I'd like to get your thoughts on the Rand Carthon answer to Terry McCormick's question about the Derrick Henry trade.
Yes.
Terry McCormick's question.
Right? I think it was Terry,
It was
wasn't
me.
it? No, it
Was
wasn't.
me. Yes, it was.
How senile are you that now?
On the Derrick Henry trade, look at Nicholas.
I want to hear it.
How senile is who, Joe?
Bet him, buddy.
I bet you $50, Joe. It was me.
I may have to.
How senile am I?
may
Says
have to
the guy who
retire.
doesn't know who asked the question, which was me.
I'm retiring if this is true.
Nick, did you have-
walking away.
That could have turned into a third for Derek last year.
Whose
I
voice was
thought
that?
that was Terry.
Yeah, that was definitely PK.
All right, we're going to a medical break here. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
You and Terry sound alike. I don't know who should
No.
feel worse about themselves.
Dude,
me
I'm
or you.
sitting a couple seats away from you. Terry's on the other side of the place.
Okay.
Also, it's not that important who asks a question. I don't know why you need to identify the question asker in every
Well,
situation.
you're the one
but
who
at
had to
least-
be like, it was me. It was
at
me. It
least
was
I-
me.
Well, you're the one that's saying it's Terry, which is
right.
factually incorrect.
So anyway, Marcus. Someone says Al says 69 million. Okay. So anyway, so first of all, let's review. Dan Pompei wrote this story this week. There was one missing word where it's that's Eric DeCosta told him this, and that he was at
Of course.
Baltimore. And it's written very clearly that Eric DeCosta said that it was a fourth that could have turned into a third. So this is we have now got, and Rand
He said,
yesterday
she
is.
said.
Rand's like, I don't know where that came from. I'm like, I do. It's
Yeah.
from the Ravens
Eric
GM
DeCosta.
who just told our reporter that was what happened. So So
I
how-
would have
how do
liked for you to have stood up and said that, defended your boy.
Yeah, I should have done
You
that.
should have done that.
So how do we view this then?
He said, she said, they don't want to look bad. And he told an untruth.
Rand told an untruth.
I would think so.
I think the only
That was
thing,
my initial reaction.
yeah, like you could go semantics with this, where Rand could come back at DeCosta and be like, "Well, we didn't say for sure it was that,
Yeah,
right?"
yeah.
Yeah.
Semantic.
But
BS.
it seems basically like that came out, and then you believe ownership.
No, I don't believe. I misspoke the other day because I reported at the time, and I should have remembered this. This is me being senile, that Amy did not nix it. So I think upon further thought, my thinking is, and I don't believe that Vrabel nixed it. I think Vrabel thought he was safe. This is still relatively early in the season, and we know that it was reported that Vrabel was safe by Diana.
We'll get into that later,
Okay,
too.
so I think Vrabel wanted everything he could get for next year. He knew last year's team was bad. He was disappointed that they didn't trade more than Kevin Byard. I know this. So I don't think it was Brinker. So I think it must have been somebody like Bryce Wasserman, who's got good influence. It could have been Kenneth.
Bert Nihill, he's in there. Yeah, no way.
You know what I mean? It could have been somebody more peripheral making the case that this is bad for the franchise in terms of our marketing, in terms of our treatment of our star player, in terms of what it means this year.
You think Bryce Wasserman comes in
versus
there
the
and
football.
just dunks on this trade? It doesn't
I think
happen.
Bryce Wasserman had influence over John Robinson being fired.
Okay. Interesting.
It is interesting.
Very interesting. Because like if it was Amy, then yesterday adds up to me in terms of nope, that did not happen. Don't know where that came from, right? Because obviously ownership doesn't want to, and it makes. I mean, if it's ownership, which is a natural thing to think, then it makes ownership look bad, especially now. And it's always after the fact, but everybody now is like, how could you not get that pick? Even though in the moment, a lot more people would have been mad about the trade.
Yeah. I think at the time, like I don't know what, I don't remember what I said at the time. I would have thought they should have. My issue with trading Derrick Henry is I don't think, and I still find it hard to believe that the Ravens would have given up something as good as a third for Derrick Henry at that stage last year, knowing that they were a season away from getting him for free.
We talked about a
money.
fifth or a sixth as a possibility with Henry.
And I think those were more realistic offers. And that's what I was hearing, that they weren't getting good offers for their people. They would have traded several people if they got good offers.
I know we have to go. He played that Derrick Henry clip on Bussin' with the Boys. He's like, it was close. It was close. It was pretty good. That kind of went well with all this. But the greatest text that we've ever received, I need to read next.
We'll get into all that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More coming up next with Paul Kuharski, Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game.
or as close as you thought you'd be to where you want to be when you took the job 9 months ago?
I do. I feel really good about where our team is at. I feel good about the players we've drafted. I feel good about the players we added in free agency. I feel good about the guys that have here in the locker room before I got here. So I think the team's in a good place. I love the way they work. I love their attitude. And so we're going to see what we're all about. And the best part about it is we get to put pads on and go play football and get to show people whether we're up to the task or not. And I think that our guys are, and I'm excited to see that.
That's Brian Callahan yesterday. Paul Kuharski with us from paulkuharski.com. Brought to you by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you as well. PK, we're going to get your thoughts on things that stood out yesterday at Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, Anthony Robinson's press conference. But first, Joe Rexrode, according to him, had the greatest text message we've ever received.
Yeah, it's a 9. I want this person to please put your name here so we can give you credit. But he says, as a psychiatrist, it is my professional opinion that Paul is extremely jealous of Joe. Excellent takes. His envy is blatantly obvious. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We all see it, but you had the courage to say it. I appreciate you.
Yeah, that's a courageous thing to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please give us your name so that we can credit you and celebrate you.
Yeah.
Paul is very envious of Joe losing his mind the last
senility.
Thinking that Paul was Terry McCormick.
Yeah. If we could get a senility doctor in. My father had very bad dementia before he died. I know a guy up in Jersey if you want to go see him.
Oh, good. Let's take the show to a dark place today.
I love being able to, I don't love it, but mentioning that and bringing Joe right
on down.
Yeah.
Just right on down. Last time we had a conversation like this, he was talking about colostomy bags, ginger chews, and all that sort of stuff. Good stuff.
Or blue chew, whatever,
whatever
strikes
Blue
you.
chew from my microphone.
That's right. BK, anything in particular stand out yesterday with Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon?
I liked what Callahan said about Levis. I thought it kind of leveled things off. Everybody goes crazy for and I mean, I don't think it's insignificant by any means that Levis arranges the Cabo trip and has these workouts at Vanderbilt, but then his coach comes in and says, that's what you expect of your quarterback, lead and bring people along. And he's not talking physically bring people along, but he's talking, when you're doing stuff, quarterback needs to do it with people. And so, Levis met that expectation, which I think is big. It really is. I don't want to say like put up or shut up time. Obviously, Levis isn't that far along, but I think we all watched him through the offseason and there wasn't a dramatic improvement. And it's hard, though unfair, not to go out there today or for this first batch of practices and want to see some notable improvement from all of this work. And I find myself kind of have to fight that, know that that's unreasonable. But from the course of today to the end of camp, we do need to see some notable improvement. And so in that regard, it's on for Will Levis.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you want to see him be sharp and sharper than he was in spring. It was a new offense. It was a rookie who now has been trying to learn one offense, and now I understand this offense is more what he was used to in college to some extent, but it's still a new offense. And I think some of the timing stuff isn't there. And that's where all this offseason mental reps, should matter. But yeah, I will overreact. There will be overreaction, but the overall sum of camp, you want him to be sharper than he was in the spring. But I don't think anything to here has been especially concerning, in my opinion. Maybe you disagree.
No, I wouldn't say especially concerning. I would say I've had to force myself back to reasonable expectations because the excitement of the new coach, a quarterback guy, a system guy, the new talent around him. Every time I've had a chance to watch him, I've wanted to see more. Let's see the growth and everything. Unreasonably so. And so tamp it down. Well, at some point during this, going to take that leash off of myself. I think we're all going to take the leash off. So hopefully he's showing that progress. Hopefully he does something big in the preseason games, even operating a vanilla version of this offense. And there's something to be more excited about that doesn't result in him being as big of a question mark going into opening day as he might be.
Well, I think one of the interesting parts about this season as it goes along is kind of determining when to take those reins off as the season goes, right? Like I think we've talked about this. I think it's reasonable to expect to a certain degree a slower start for the offense based on it is a new offensive line. It is a new play caller. It is a bunch of new pieces coming together. And sometimes we see that in a regular season. It takes a while for guys to get going there. In the same breath, this is a huge year. Maybe it's not put up or shut up for Will Levis, but they're trying to make a decision on what he is and whether or not he's the quarterback of the future. So how long do we give ourselves this year before you say, you know what? It's been 5 games. We need to see more from Will Levis. It's been 7 games. We need to see more from Will Levis.
And here's the other big thing about Levis that I don't think we've given enough consideration. And Warren Sharp wrote about this some. His average throw was 10.5 yards downfield. The average among passers that qualified for passer rating was 7.7. 22.4 of Levis's percent of Levis's throws were 20 yards or further downfield, highest rate in the league. Almost a quarter of his throws were 20 yards or further downfield. Average was half that. Next closest was 14.6. Okay. This is going to come back. Like all of us are fired up about the quick release and the long arm. And they're going to take their shots for sure. But for him to be good and for the Titans offense to be good, those numbers need to come down.
Yep.
And he needs to hit more intermediate and short passes that will help the new run game, which is going to include short passes as part of the run game, really. And that will help open up some of those deep shots and enable him to find more open people instead of forcing some stuff that's not open, which he did last year, which accounted for some of the low completion percentage and stuff. I don't know if people are really thinking about that or ready for that. It's going to be a shorter passing offense. Joe Burrow's yards per completion have come down the last 3 years. Now there have been injuries involved in that, but it's not going to be as high flying maybe as people think. Hopkins isn't a deep guy. Boyd is certainly not a deep guy. And those guys
Ridley is.
Huh?
Ridley is.
So, but there's, if you're thinking in some way, shape, or form, a third, and a third, well, 2/3 of it isn't deep.
Well, those numbers also tell me that they didn't have anybody on the roster last year, maybe outside of Hopkins, that could get open quickly, right? I mean, it's that. Then hopefully that changes this year too.
And they didn't know how to use one when they did get Kyle Phillips out there, who I think is on the outs now. But I think last year when he came off IR was an addition that could have helped them with those things, and they couldn't figure out how to make that work.
We'll have more with Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com coming up next, talking all things Tennessee Titans, taking your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keiser, Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us, talking all things Tennessee Titans. Joe, you have a thought from Austin on the text line.
Austin says, Paul, don't you think those stats are more a byproduct of being behind the chains of the bad O-line than a representation of Levis's decision-making? I said, good question. I'll bring it up. I'll say, first of all, it's 9 games. I struggle to really take a lot out of 9 games with, as Austin said, bad conditions. I feel like there were times where he just threw it up. He just got rid of the ball. Also, like the first game, right? It was just like the Falcons decided not to cover anybody downfield.
Yeah.
It's a small sample size. So, I think you're right.
It is a small sample
this
size.
offense definitely, like you watch the Bengals offense, and also it plays to Burrow's strength, though. Burrow is his accuracy, short and intermediate, is elite. And so they play to that. So how much of their offense is, well, that's what Joe does really well, so let's do that. Also, I know they've had to go to a lot of let's get Jamar the ball quickly, let him, things like that. Maybe this offense, because Will does have a really nice deep ball, maybe they do go downfield. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they'll go downfield more. But listen, we can't write off everything he did because the offensive line was bad and the weapons were bad.
No, that's
what's on the record is on the record. And what he did, he did. So, you can take the rough edges off a little bit, but you can't erase it. It exists. It happened. We saw it.
Yeah, and I do think in order for them to maximize what they're going to be, you're right. Those numbers have to come down. Like, it's not sustainable to be throwing the ball that deep every play and think that you're gonna.
My point
have
is,
any sort of deficiency.
Everybody's just presuming it happened.
Right.
It has to happen. The process has to occur. He has to make better decisions. You can't just assume he's going to make better decisions because he's got better protection and whatever. We saw bad decision making his senior year, and we saw bad decision making last year. And we know the coaching situation wasn't as good in his senior year at Kentucky, and we know the protection and the weapons weren't that good last year. Nevertheless, that's 2 years of bad decision making.
Okay, so you're saying that last year was a year of bad decision making?
There were a lot of not
some
great decision making.
Did you come away, Robbie, from last year being like, man, this kid really makes a lot of bad decisions?
Not a ton, no. But to his point,
he was better than I expected.
His senior year, I thought he made a ton of bad decisions. So he was actually better than I expected last year. And we talked earlier in the show. The turnovers, like he didn't throw that many picks. There are probably about 3 or 4 more at least that he should have thrown last year too. So no, I didn't walk away thinking it was like some epidemic of bad decisions from Will Levis last year.
I'm not saying it as much as Callahan's saying it yesterday. Said the 3 things that we've got to get down to get into the flow are accuracy, decision making, and I can't remember the third thing. But he's saying I need him to get these 3 things down to be in his regular flow.
Everybody's saying he's not a finished product. Of course.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's. I don't think it's like it has to get better, of course. He has to get better at everything if he's going to be what they're hoping he is. I don't look at that. I thought one of the most interesting things that he said, and maybe it's the same thing you're talking about, is he said he's an accurate passer. It's more about on time offense.
Yeah.
Where are you going with the ball? Get it there, which I thought was interesting. I still feel like one of my biggest questions is the muscle memory, and are you gonna pop it in there every time when you do see it? But I just don't think he was like Mr. Wild, all over the place, head scratching decisions last year. I was pleasantly, I would say, surprised.
He was better than I expected him to be. But
has to get better. We'd all agree
some
with that.
decision making goes into it when you throw 58%.
Let the record show we have Adam in Portland and Kyle on the line at the same time.
No.
So the conspiracy theories yesterday thrown out there that they're the same person are not real.
Well, unless they're working, the guy has his wife on another line.
Well, I will point out this happened on Still yesterday too.
Oh, did it?
It's a little weird that they both they're really trying to make us think they're not the same person. Let's find out.
Just let the record show. That's what the text line thought yesterday, but we have visual evidence otherwise. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
This is Kyle. I'm just kidding. This is not Kyle. Dude,
Well
you
played.
know me forever, too, dude. You know my voice, whatever.
Come on,
Hey,
people.
quick
It wasn't
thing.
me.
So, this is the thing, though, Robbie, man. And Paul, I'm the hugest Paul fan through the years, and I'm the one because there's not many, and I know that. But I'm a huge Paul fan. But I feel like his Levis takes are super weak, and so I look at for a quarterback to get me excited. I want to see something unique in their game. Marcus tricked me with that first game he had. I was like, his short game is going to be super quick because he's got like a rocket, and you just didn't see it in the short game like that. Well, Levis is that shoulder shimmy, that pump fake, and you don't see it a lot anymore. You don't see people using the pump fake the way he does, and he uses it a lot. So it's just something that's kind of unique. I don't know if he's not a finished product. He's still young, but he's got enough in his game to make me think he could be an exciting quarterback. So I just look, does he have anything like special? And I think that's special in his game.
Well, I
Okay.
agree that that's special. I just think we're, particularly that one texter, a little eager to just toss away what's in evidence.
Okay. You got to be quiet because I want to hear Kyle immediately after Ab.
I'm just glad there's always a backhanded compliment when it comes to Paul. It's like, I love Paul. I know no one else does, but I love Paul.
Yeah, or when somebody agrees with me. For the first time ever, I agree with Paul.
I am Paul's only fan.
Right.
Let's go back to our 1025 game phone line. Welcome in Kyle. Kyle, quickly. How we doing?
This
What's
is
going on?
Adam, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I been a little harsher on Will. Last year when he was throwing those should have been picks, I mean, he had zero opportunities to make a play. I mean, every decision he was going to make was going to be bad. Hang on to the ball, he's getting blasted. Throw into double coverage with Hopkins, throw into a blanketed NWI. He had no options, man. It was like he's playing with a peewee team is what it reminded me of. He was the best player on the field. But that's it on Levis. But I think I could see Tannehill waiting it out and Deshaun Watson, him sucking like we just know he's going to, and Vrabel's up there. I bet he goes to Cleveland and takes over.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Kyle.
They've gotten themselves
They got Jameis back there.
2 backup quarterbacks.
So I will make this point too on Will Levis. The last time that Will Levis played a season of football in which he had even reasonable protection, he was excellent. And that was the 2021 season at Kentucky, where he completed 66% of his passes, threw for 2,800 plus yards, 24 TDs. He did throw 13 picks. So he threw 23 picks in college, but that's why that was the year people were like, "Ooh, is this guy going to be the number 1 overall pick?" That's the last time he's played with an offensive line that wasn't a joke.
Okay.
Because as Kentucky last year, it was a joke. It was awful. And last year we know what the Titans were. So doesn't guarantee anything, but I think it's worth mentioning if we're going to go to his past.
I would agree. Now, look, I struggle with all that sometimes too. I'm fully aware that the conditions were bad. The offensive line was bad. It was bad as last year at Kentucky. It was horrible last year with the Titans. I also watched one of the worst offensive lines I think I've ever seen with Joe Burrow in year 2. Didn't slow him down much. 34 touchdowns, 14 picks, threw for 4,000 yards, 4,600 yards. Now, I know he had good weapons.
It's Joe Burrow.
And he's a much better prospect.
And he's a much better prospect. I get all that. But I'm saying when you're quarterbacking to the level that you need to quarterback at in the NFL, sometimes you can overcome some of that stuff.
Sometimes you
That's
can.
my
Sometimes you can. But I believe that the offensive line and the trenches have always been and will always be the most important thing in football. And that's why Jared Goff is someone else that we all think he's so good. He has the best offensive line in football. Good. Well, okay, well then you are now in the minority in the NFL because and Jared Goff is fine, but Jared Goff has an incredible benefit of the offensive line. He's a great example of
which is
why
helping
it matters.
make him great.
Sure.
Right. But what I'm saying is I abide by the idea that sacks are somewhat of a quarterback stat. Now, I understand Levis is young and needs time and all of that. But no matter how good his offensive line is, he's going to need to get himself out of trouble and make some decisions. There's going to be pressure and all of that. And Jared Goff is at the very high end of having elite protection. Peyton Manning didn't have that for most of his career. Peyton Manning got himself out of trouble. Got rid of the ball, all of that stuff. So did Brady. Now I'm talking elite here, but that's what you want your quarterback to be able to do is avoid trouble, generally speaking. And so the idea that Will Levis is going to go from having the worst offensive line to having the best offensive line is folly.
Sure.
He's going to have a better offensive line. He's still going to face some of the things he faced last year on some crucial snaps, and he's going to need to figure that out. Now, we only have 9 games in evidence, but is he going to be a guy that can figure that out? We don't know yet. But the idea that he's got to be in a bubble in order to function is crazy. And that's why I'm saying, like, his senior year at Kentucky or his last year at Kentucky, I'm not pretending that I watched all of that, but an elite college quarterback in his final year of college, I think, should do better than he did in bad circumstances.
There you go.
Okay.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll have more with Paul Kuharsky coming up next. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry.
Trey Avery need to show you anything?
Did you have another thought, or no? I'm just curious.
Well,
It sucks. Losing, awful.
as a psychiatrist, it is my professional opinion that Paul is extremely jealous of Joe. Excellent takes. His envy is blatantly obvious.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We all see it, but you had the courage to say it. I appreciate you.
Yeah, that's a courageous thing to say.
Yes. That's one disappointing part about yesterday. I don't think Trey Avery came up at all in the press conferences yesterday. Tough look.
How did Johnny handle that when you brought it up on air? Because I didn't get an honest answer from him.
It was just like, well, thanks, guys.
Really appreciate you guys bringing that up.
I was like, devastated, huh, Johnny? He's like,
I mean, at some point this year, a Glenn and Trey Avery question has to.
It's gotta happen.
Right, come on.
Yeah.
Let's play the hits.
I mean, he's not. I don't know that he is conscious enough not to do it.
He may not be.
Yeah, we'll see.
The beauty.
All right. So first of all, I want to turn this into because we have Paul here for a few more minutes, a theme that's been on the text line a lot about the Levis thing. So I'm gonna combine a lot of questions into that. But I'm so glad, Nick, that you played the reading of that texture, because he followed up with the text, and I just want to lay this here for everybody to that we can. He said, Joe, I will share my credentials in the near future. Until then, be very careful around Paul. He's definitely out to get you. If you and your wife happen to be storing frozen embryos in your freezer, Paul would be the most likely to use one as an ice cube in his gin and tonic.
Oh, that's disgusting.
That took
Why
it
did
down
you
the
read that? People are eating breakfast.
I'm now afraid of this person. However, I still very much appreciate your text.
Are you planning on having another child?
No.
You're a little old for that.
Thanks,
champ.
Yeah, thank you. Wow.
That's your grandpa?
I mean, I don't know. Bill Belichick's playing Ring Around the Rosie. Who knows what may
That's
happen.
not a guy to model after.
It's true.
So anyway, here's let me
that?
synthesize all these into the point, and we talked about it a lot, but I think it's valid to bring up with all these things about Levis, which is scheme and coaching. And I've been on record as saying it's not as bad as you think it was last year for him in terms of coaching and scheme. And the offense the offense, they did change they changed last year to like the Patriots offense, basically. Basically, that was Brady's offense of the Patriots that they ran last year. But it was a modern NFL scheme. They couldn't block anyone. They had one receiver. That, to me, is what it comes down to. It is Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's. That said, I do think it's exciting that Brian Callahan comes from where he comes from. What we saw in Cincinnati with Callahan as OC under Zach Taylor, what we've seen from this entire tree of coaches. I mean, this is basically the McVay, Shanahan tree, and the offensive guys, other than Nathaniel Hackett, have been pretty freaking successful. Even, you guys Robby wanted to fire Matt LaFleur many times, and now he's got to give him his flowers because he's pretty freaking good up there. Just saying.
Not good enough to coach up Andre Dillard, apparently.
So how much does that matter? How much of a difference will that make for Will Levis?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question, and that's kind of what I've been trying to get at. There's a lot of anticipation, but we need to see. And I think, we as a market have hyped ourselves into great expectations for Will Levis. I think in some quarters, too big expectations for Will Levis. Maybe surprises us.
Which is nothing like the NFL.
It would surprise me. Well, we don't want to fall victim to what NFL offseason is. I've done it too many times. I did it last year. So I'm trying to hold myself in check. Last year, you and I and everybody did it, convinced ourselves that this was going to be a good team and take off. And this is a better team than last year's team. But how much better? The division's better. The quarterbacks are all better. So I think Will Levis is going to be better, but it might be unrealistic to expect him to be as better as we're anticipating.
Well, and here's the other thing.
40 touchdowns is a lot of touchdowns.
That's a lot of touchdowns. The other thing is, this has been six months, and I don't want to use the term that Jared is throwing out there of toxic positivity, but it's been 6 months. Look, it's a new coaching staff. It's a new era of Titans football. Everything's all rosy, right? Well, we're about to find out a lot about Brian Callahan. He's not been a play caller before. He's not been a head coach before. Will Levis is entering into his first year as the unquestioned starter heading into camp. Like, there's a lot that has happened or that is about to happen that we have no idea how these guys are going to respond to. Like, it's all been rosy. The last coaching staff sucks. This one's great. Like, everything's great. But this is the only thing that matters, is when the bullets start to get live here, and we're about to figure out exactly what Callahan and Levis are made of.
And some teams with a second-year quarterback and a new coach and a new philosophy and everything take off. And some teams sputter. What does the Titans' DNA tell you will happen?
Oh, now you're going to go back to.
I'm just saying, I know that you believe
Titans.
that none of that has anything to do with this.
I mean, ownership, like if there are ownership issues, like the Lions are a great example of bad ownership consistently killing a team. But other than that, what would it be?
I'm just telling you, I've been here for all of it.
I know.
And there's something in the DNA.
There's something in the water.
There is.
Causing you to lose your memory, but I don't know if it's really hurt the Titans.
My memory? Who asked the question
it's
about
causing you to sound like it's causing you to sound like Terry McCormick when you ask questions. Hey, we got a memory coach, by the way, on here. Or a guy who says wife, she's a memory caregiver.
That's great.
Offered to help us out. Oh, yeah, we both need help. I can raise my hand. I have self-awareness.
The overhead light in the master bedroom of my house went out a couple days ago, and I'm like, yeah, I got to change that. Until I put a reminder in my phone to do it yesterday afternoon, we operated in the dark for 3.5 days.
Just total dark.
Just like Braille, walking around the bedroom.
You operating in the dark in your bedroom anyway, but yeah.
To like get clothes.
A lot of things going on in this segment.
Out of my pile of clothes on my chair, not out of any drawer.
Sorry, we started talking about Belichick.
Went off the wall to frozen embryos and other things. Great stuff. I mean, he is right that throughout the basically the entirety of the franchise hadn't been able to find any receivers except for 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, but again, like
maybe they have some now.
I mean, again, this is just like helmet scouting. I got people asking me, it's like the Ohio State quarterback. Now I got people asking me, like on my like in the comments on the last thing I wrote is like, oh, there's Alabama. What is it about their system and offensive tackles? They're all bust. I'm like, I really don't think Alabama does anything that like would cause all their tackles. Like they've had a little bit of a bad run, but you know what that means? It's hard to find good college tackles who actually make it big in the NFL. It's very hard to find really good offensive linemen in the NFL.
Look, right? I see evidence that things are going to be good. But we talked like this about Ken Wisenhunt at the start of Ken Wisenhunt's first training camp.
Sure. I think the thing is, when we go back to scheme, look, the hit rate is very high with this tree. It is. It doesn't guarantee a thing.
Yep.
But also, I mean, have you guys not been, press conferences are press conferences, but have you guys not been impressed with Brian Callahan in terms of,
for sure,
explaining things and the way he seems?
He seems like he knows what he's doing.
Very good.
No.
Everything seems great.
I mean, were you impressed with Wisenhunt? I don't know. I mean, the thing about Wisenhunt is he was a little superstar for a few years of this league, and all of a sudden he gets here, and it was like, wow.
Complete ass.
Emperor with no clothes at all.
None.
Was he a complete ass from the start?
Great in week 1.
Like you knew that?
I don't remember.
Fantastic week 1 coach.
First off, I have memory problems.
I'm sure you kissed his butt and made excuses for him.
Yeah. He and I never fought. I don't remember, A, because I wanted to wipe it from my memory, and B, because as we've been discussing pretty thoroughly in this hour, we have memory issues.
See, he wasn't here very long. Didn't go very well for a
I remember that Tommy Smith
should be better though. Right?
I remember that Tommy Smith liked the idea of him being the play caller, but he couldn't explain why.
Yeah,
he just liked it.
PK, have fun out there at training camp today.
Don't block the box, but be sure to lock your locks. See ya.
I'll see you in Stilly out there. I hope you're together.
Tennessee Titans going next. Joe Rexrode might have a few things to say about Stilly as well. We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. Appreciate Paul Kuharski for being with us in the last hour. Normally with us starting now, but PK had to go a little bit earlier today. So if you're tuning in and you missed PK, it'll be up later on our Robby and Rexrode podcast. Be up shortly. Anywhere you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple, thegamenashville.com. Check it out. A lot of memory talk last time out.
Get that
led by
out of the
Rexrode.
way. Yeah. Well, yeah. We both have some issues. But that's the thing. Like long term, I'm good.
That's good.
I mean, I can tell you like something that happened in a Detroit Tigers baseball game in 1987, like with precision. You know what I mean?
You think we hear from Arden Key today?
I don't even totally understand what it's still going to be a restricted access thing, unfortunately, with players.
Lovely.
So, but it's like it's on days when Callahan talks, it'll be more restricted. On days when he doesn't talk, it'll be less. So, all of which is to say, I don't know when next time he'll be available, but I cannot wait.
I can't
for
either.
that. Let me tell you something.
Paul Kuharski. Arden, looking forward to hearing from you.
What's up with Kuharsk?
What's up with Kuharsk? You have some problems that you need to air out with Stilly.
Yeah, we got into a big argument, which I'll bring here. I want something on the record first of all, because I assume either he said it yesterday. I listened to some of his show, which also brought another issue to mind. I mean, obviously he's obsessed with us and likes to take shots at us. So 3 things with him. First of all, and someone who was texting earlier about like the model, like his expectation. I don't know what this is. I don't care. Okay. But like, it makes make a prediction or don't make a prediction. Okay. This is not like you're acting like this is like some PFF analytics model. It's like your weird little, should they win or will they win? Yeah, I don't care. I do not care. So the fact that I guess I actually had a lot of the same things that he did per game. I didn't go through what he said about every game, and I don't care. I don't care. Okay. So that's the first thing. Also, he said one of the dumbest things that's ever come out of my mouth was comparing Steve Underwood to Chad Brinker because he's all on this thing where Chad Brinker should be at the presser and all that.
Yeah.
I said it, I think, but if I didn't say it, I'll say it again. I'm not saying it's the exact same job. I understand. It's a different setup. They don't have the same setup they had. Steve Underwood then was more what Burke Nihill is now in the organization. But my point is, unless you can show me that Chad Brinker is picking the players, because the funny thing is every time we talk about GMs talking, trades being made, all these things, it's Rand, who's the general manager, who picks the players. Now, if that's not true, I understand that Chad Brinker is ahead of him on the pecking order, and technically Rand, I guess, reports to Chad. But unless Chad is picking the players, then no, it's not. He's not necessary at the press conferences, in my opinion, and you're misguided there. There's 2.
Okay.
But the third thing is, this is something, again, maybe Jared said it yesterday or he will again. Maybe he has before. I just want to kill it and shame it as much as possible before it ever gets any life, because it's a complete disservice to anyone out there who might actually believe this is true. Okay. It's so stupid that it seriously makes me angry, and I don't like to be angry. I have a long fuse, long fuse. Okay. The Jared, and this is where, like what Paul was saying last week at one point, it's like, I know he's smart. So when he gets into these really dumb conspiracy theories, it's like, does he really believe it, or is he just doing this for content? And I have a problem with that if you're doing it for content. I guess I have a problem if you're that dumb too. But I don't think you're that dumb. Jared is trying to push this idea that when the Titans, around Thanksgiving or whatever it was, and Diana Rossini at The Athletic had the report, Mike Vrabel's going nowhere, he's going to be the coach, that was actually intentionally lying. So, I mean, if we're going to say the Titans, I mean, I guess you could say
Amy.
And this is, again, speculation, but you could just say Amy Adams Strong.
Miss Amy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Miss Amy. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Rob.
Yeah.
Mr. Rob, Mr. Robert, Mr. Robbie. Which do you prefer?
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So think about And he tried to make this case yesterday. We were yelling about it right before the press conference started. And I said, you're the dumbest person I know. Like yelling at me again, like that's not cool. I got out of hand a little bit.
Once again, the long fuse on display.
Yeah, well, but it took a while.
Yep,
it took a while. Like the long fuse does lead to the dynamite. The dynamite is at the end of the fuse. Okay,
it's true.
It's just, it's like, but think about the logic there. I mean, I need you to get mad about this. Think about the logic that you would have to not possess to think that Amy Adams Strunk would want it out there publicly that there's no way let's end the speculation and the talk. Vrabel is the coach next year, moving forward with Mike Vrabel. And you actually knew that's not the case, and you're lying. And Jared said something like, well, they could have been traded Vrabel. Like, just stop it, man. Stop it.
Well, I don't know if let's operate under that way of thinking for a minute that Amy Adams Strunk knew she was firing Vrabel the whole time. Well, why would you say anything? Right?
Yes.
Like, why would you say anything at all about it?
Right.
Like that doesn't add up to me. Like if you knew that you were going to fire him the whole time, then you just wouldn't say anything. You wouldn't come out you certainly wouldn't come out and say, yeah, Mike Vrabel's going to be our coach.
So that you can look terribly stupid later.
Reverse course. What was it? 6 weeks?
Yeah.
7 weeks later?
Right.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't.
You're intentionally making yourself look dumb publicly.
I mean, we talked about that the day after he got fired, which was, she said 6 weeks ago that he was safe and that he was the coach moving forward. So what changed between now and then? That's basically 50% of the conversation we had.
But I'll go back to some reporting that we did. And there's a lot of information in there about what went wrong, including around that time and everything, the Patriots thing, they never talked about it. There was a communication breakdown. Things festered. Things got worse. That's what happened. I mean, again, this has all been reported, vetted, sourced. Like, that's what happened. So why, if you're Jared, other than you have 4 hours a day to talk and you have to fill the time, would you decide to go here with it? Again, it's kind of like let's just keep this plane from Green Bay crap alive. Why not?
I forgot about the plane from Green Bay.
Yeah. We're going to gather all these bricks one day, and we're going to build a nice little homage to Jared's takes.
I got 2 texts from Stilly on my personal text line.
Oh, good.
The first one, the coolest kid in class always, quote, doesn't care, bro. Going about your first comments. Secondly, ask this question.
Well, I don't understand what this stupid model is. Make me care.
His second one, ask this question. What happened with the coach before Vrabel? Referring to Malarkey.
Yeah. No, he did this too. So again, this is where, like, I guess maybe he is dumb. Because it's like this inability to grasp some basic logic principles. Yes, there's no question that there was some lying that happened, and there was some cloak and dagger, and the Malarkey thing happened. How do you look at that and say, well, that situation must be exactly the same as this situation? If someone lies one time, which frankly, any of these teams at different times do, so to Jared, that means everything's a lie, always, prisoner of every moment. No, use your brain. Use your brain.
Cameron says, saying it and meaning it and then doing a complete 180 and firing Vrabel 6 weeks later sure as hell doesn't make her look smart. This from Cameron on the text line.
Well, you're right, Cameron. You're right. But again, let's compare that to this idea of, well, I know I'm firing him, but let's go ahead and go public with, no way he's going anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right, Cameron. It looks bad because it's an owner who over 2 years went all in and gave all this money to 2 people, fired one of them in season when you didn't need to, basically saying the responsibility is on that person, and then all of a sudden fire the other one.
A year later.
But again, I'm going to point to information that has been reported that's very clear about their relationship, about what Vrabel said about Rand when they hired Rand, about the breakdown of communication. Yes, the Patriots weekend, and from the Amy perspective, I absolutely was wrong.
Nothing burger. Jared from Spring Hill's bringing it up on the text line.
Yeah, but no, that's fair. But the nothing burger is, and I'll take this to my grave, Vrabel was not trying to rip his own boss when he said what he said at the Patriots Ring of Honor, okay? But it was not a nothing burger for Amy. There's no doubt about it. So those are the things that lead you to go public with something, say there's no way it's happening, and then 6 weeks later change your mind. There was a lot of losing in between. There were other things that happened, but mostly it was a relationship that deteriorated. This is all clear, but we're going to go with she lied at the time? Really? You're going to make me go crazy?
615-737-1025, our phone number. Take your reaction on our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. More on the Titans and the beginning of training camp today coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. We're taking your thoughts on the Titans. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025 1025. The Game Summer Ticket Tour presented by Green River Whiskey is back. Join our own Joe Dubin at MJ Sports Bar and Grill, 1253 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. as he gives away tickets to upcoming concerts in Nashville, including Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and more. Sign up for the grand prize. Tickets to a Preds home game, Sounds game, and to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/tour. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly.
So I'm really glad that we have football to watch today. I mean, who knows what we'll see. Unfortunately, it'll probably be in the bubble would be my guess. By the way, quick aside, we do give all players today. So Arden.
Little Arden key.
And no, that is not the most newsworthy thing or anything. But I'd like to know what I'd like to know what he has to say. So I'm glad we have football. So I want to put this to bed today. I know Jared will spend an hour on this and whatever. That's fine. I don't put this to rest. We get to football tomorrow. But I do want to go through Colin Shelbyville in the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Okay. He says, if Amy didn't plan on firing him the whole time, why in that press conference? And what he means is the Mike Keith. He says the hostage video with Mike Keith. Did she say, I considered firing both, at the same time? I guess she said that, right? She said she considered.
I don't remember.
I don't remember her saying that explicitly, but I mean, I think that was maybe inferred. So again, Kyle, so let's play this out then. So you're saying it's possible that last year when Mike Vrabel was the coach, that Amy actually planned to fire him all along? I mean, that again, if that's the case, that's remotely true, then why would he have been there? And remember, I know right now Vrabel is helping out in Cleveland, all that stuff. Going into last year, where would Mike Vrabel have ranked on an owner's list, a GM's list, an other coaches list, a media list of top coaches in the NFL? Pretty freaking high. She didn't plan to fire him all along. She didn't plan to fire him at Thanksgiving. She fired him. She eventually got there and changed her mind and fired him. It's been 2 years of changing her mind and doing things. This is not hard. Someone says, I'm not a Jared hater. I respect his work ethic, preparation work, but his hot takes and going on and on about this guy sucks and she's a liar makes him hard to listen to. Landon in Clarksville.
Well, you got Jared.
This is not a referendum on Jared, just on this particular take.
You got Jared versus Joe coming up 5 o'clock today.
We do.
So I'm sure this will come up.
So
among other things.
That's fine. If it comes up, then he's screwed.
And that long fuse is going to be in some serious jeopardy. Baby.
I think I've yelled it out. I mean, he seriously is trying to talk about you could have. There was talk of trading for him. Yes, it was all a long play. And
5 o'clock today.
See, I need you to get mad about this. You just laugh at how I get mad.
Well,
I
stop
need
getting
you
so
to get
mad now. Quit.
But you agree with me. You know how stupid this is.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I just need some support here.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Welcome in, Whit. Whit, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, hope you can hear me. I'm driving.
Yeah, man.
Jared's become a one-note pony. I cannot listen to it anymore. The Nicholas Petit Frere, a.k.a. that bit is so old. Come on. Have some creativity. Anyway, do I not remember at the end of last season that Vrabel met with Amy and appeared, from what we heard reported, that they were necessarily on the same page in terms of all kumbaya, and he wanted to be somebody overran. I mean, if you meet with your boss and you're on a different page, your boss lets you go. It doesn't matter where you're working. That's what happens.
Thank you, Whit. Did you say a one-note pony?
One note? I've never heard one-note pony.
I like it.
I don't mind the PT. I do, since this is become Jared. 70% of the show is about him, right?
Well,
I do. Today. I would ask that Jared never says anywho again. Anywho. Okay. I mean, I really
Jared, write that down.
Anywho. I think anywho was coined by Jim Carrey on the show In Living Color in 1990.
Maybe so. I had people asking me on the text line if I saw what happened to Andre Dillard yesterday. Yep, saw it. 3 sacks, 4 plays for Rashawn Gary. Let's go back to our 1025 The Game phone line. Welcome in, Kyle. Kyle, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, guys. Well, y'all were talking about how all the reports and everything were saying that, Vrabel is safe, this and that. Well, in that interview, the hostage interview with Mike Keith, she was saying, I considered firing both of them. I really was. I wanted to restart. So, I mean, she's contradicting herself right there. She doesn't realize it.
Yeah, a lot of people are bringing this up, and thanks, Kyle. A lot of people are bringing this up, the fact that there was some confirmation again. I don't remember the exact wording. We don't have the mic. We don't need to. That there was a consideration, and that's fine. I mean, I think it's a fair thing to consider a complete start over. What you do then is you fire John Robinson and Vrabel if you want to do it after the season, right? Yep. And you do a clean sweep. But she decided not to. So she went into last season with Mike Vrabel, one of the agreed upon best coaches in the NFL at the time, and a new GM, and they talked about collaboration. Do you think that was all a ruse?
I mean, if so, then they've got much deeper problems.
Yeah, like it's the most dysfunctional organization in sports history. Not other than the Lions, maybe the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how it played out, then they got much bigger problems than who used to be the coach and the roster and all that other stuff. You're in deep trouble if that's the case.
Amy wanted Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon to work out, and for Mike Vrabel to keep winning as a coach and work well with Rand Carthon, and that was the plan. I promise you. When you're paying people millions of dollars to do things, you actually think that maybe they can do them. I promise you. Even owners in this league.
I'm going to talk to Diana Rossini today, and I'm going to tell her that everything's good. We're keeping Vrabel going.
I mean, the thing is, like, if you decide to go public with something like that, and then it changes. Yes, you look silly because you changed your mind.
Yeah,
but like knowing how silly you'll look, but you do it intentionally.
Somebody did text me about what about like college ADs when they give the quote unquote vote of confidence to a coach? Like it's a little bit different than that, but I hear the point.
Yeah, the vote of confidence is like, oh, AD is at a presser, and then they're asked, and like, oh yeah, we have. This was, again, read it. He's going nowhere. This was everyone stop. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of your way to say something about it. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think that was the plan. Glad we established that, though. I look forward to hear what Jared has to say about it later today.
I mean, it's just a waste of time. Again, I'm glad that we have, and I wasted our time. I apologize. I wasted listeners' time today. I wasted your time today. Next time, I apologize. But it's infuriating, and I hope Jared doesn't waste too much time today, because there's actually football that he will observe, just like all of us today, to talk about. I hope that we can put this to bed. It's just not worth talking about. But then he does this, and it's like, no, like I just feel bad for anybody who listens to his show who actually might think this is possible. And I just feel like it's like a responsibility. This is like a PSA for you, like to not let that happen.
615.
You can't save everybody.
737-1025 is our phone number. We'll take more of your reaction to this. We will get into the Rand Carthon versus, I think what we now know, Eric DaCosta saga coming up next as well. Get Joe's thoughts on that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. Got some tickets to give away to see Hootie and the Blowfish at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday. Be caller 5-615-737-1025. Ray Carthon was asked about the reported potential trade of Derrick Henry last season between the Ravens and the Titans yesterday at his press conference. Had an interesting response. Here's what Rand Carthon had to say yesterday at the podium.
Were you offered a fourth that could have turned into a third for Derek last year?
No, I wasn't. I don't know where that came from. That's not my concern. But we had multiple teams, to call about Derek and offer something that wasn't worth taking or worth even considering. And I communicated that with Derek during that time. But no, we never agreed with anybody to do anything to move anybody.
So that was Rand Carthon. Question asked by Paul Kuharski there.
Am I wrong? You kind of sound like Terry, right? No,
so.
You got no. All right. Oh, God.
Paul Kuharski with the question there for Rand Carthon.
Same side of the room.
Same side of the room. So as you laid out earlier in the show, there was the report from The Athletic that the Ravens offered a fourth that could have turned into a third for Derrick Henry last season for his services. And Rand Carthon basically saying yesterday, I don't know where that came from. That's not his concern, all that stuff. What did you make of Carthon's response? The he said stuff now that it sounds like between Carthon and what we all assume to be Eric DeCosta coming from the story there. And
it is Eric DeCosta.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest issue, I guess, with what Rand said is I know where it came from. It came from Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM.
It came from the Ravens GM.
That's where it came from.
That's exactly where it came from.
So, I get you could frame it, but one of them's lying. Now, could it be, DeCosta felt like it was a stronger agreement or framework than Rand did?
Maybe.
Or they had a misunderstanding. There's semantics here on exactly what was at stake. I guess. But it seems like
kind of sounded to me like Rand trying to downplay them
because
potentially shopping Derrick Henry.
Well, I think it's downplaying the fact that because there are a lot of fans who are mad because they could have had another pick in this draft. Now some fans are like, I'm glad we got those few weeks with Derrick Henry and he had a chance to say goodbye in the microphone and all that stuff. And some are like, boy, third or fourth round pick would have been great. I think it's, obviously you're open to criticism if it's on your end that a deal that's pretty good. I'd say, like you said, we were talking fifth, sixth. That seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. And again, like PK was in earlier, that I can find the exact graph, but essentially it was that someone above Rand, right, nixed the trade.
Yes.
Which, you naturally come to miss Amy with that too, but Paul does not think that's the case. Regardless, they were close. Derrick Henry said they were close, and that was a good thing that Stilly did yesterday. Good job, Stilly. Played the Derrick Henry clip from his interview on Bussin' with the Boys with those guys. And it's interesting also to me that he was kept in the loop that closely. That doesn't always happen in terms of a potential trade, but I think it's that's doing right by someone. I think that's good. But the way he said it was, he said it was close. It was real close, So clearly it was close. Whatever was offered or whatnot, and who nixed it and all that, I don't know. But this is Rand Carthon and Eric DeCosta publicly
sparring.
Yeah, disputing something. That's what's happening here.
That's what's happening, and that's where it came from. And look, I mean, you can believe whatever you want to believe, I guess. I mean, the question, I know you guys tackled this a little bit last week, is if it was a fourth that could have turned into a third, are you doing yourself a disservice by not making that deal if you're the Titans? How much could that have helped you this year? And obviously, we'll never know because the deal didn't happen. So they ended up getting Derrick Henry, not for free because they had to pay him money, but didn't have to give up any assets to go get him. So we'll never know. But like, how do you weigh the last few weeks of Derrick Henry's Titans career and the opportunity to say goodbye and the massive game he had against Jacksonville and all that stuff versus what you could have gotten in return for him. You know, Jared's thrown it out there too that he thinks that trading Derrick Henry, even with that return, would have been a mistake, and talked about, you know, having Derrick Henry there for Will Levis as another weapon to occupy the mind of the defense and all that other stuff. I mean, you can view it however you want to view it, but I think it's a fair question to ask of, like, are you doing yourself a disservice to pass up a deal like that if that was on the table?
Yeah. So I will read this just as a matter of record, and that's a fair point on Levis on you know, trying to support him as much as possible and things like that.
Just trying to suck back up to Jared before 5 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. I got a doozy of a text read you on that. So here's a quote. DaCosta about Derrick Henry. Quote, he decimated us. This is from Dan Pape, story of The Athletic. Quote, he decimated us. If you believe in your team and an opponent torments you, that resonates. Next graph. DaCosta agreed to the framework of a trade with Tennessee general manager Rand Carthon, a 4th-round pick that could have become a 3rd had Henry reached certain production levels. However, others in the Titans hierarchy apparently were not on board with the deal, so Henry played out the season in Nashville. That is Eric DaCosta telling you this stuff.
Well, so then I don't understand I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah,
part of the comment
right.
from Carthon. That doesn't make a whole lot of
that's
sense.
my
Which makes me think
like,
he's just lying about it.
Could be.
I mean,
Like-
not that it's not the world's biggest deal if he is, but that's what it makes me think.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, yeah, like best case is like, you know, both sides, they had a different view of it, but yeah. I mean, why would DaCosta say that? I guess he could be lying too. Anybody could be lying. Everybody's lying. Everybody's lying all the time. Bob and Mount Juliet, as some of the dumbest texts I've ever read in our text line,
okay,
said you sound like a yes man for the Titans. I mean, yes, that's so because I think that Amy Adams Strunk didn't intentionally mislead the public. That's being a yes man. Well, that's what Jared went to. Like, oh, you believe what the Titans say all the time. Okay. So they lie all the time. Are they actually building that stadium? Is that true?
I haven't been to the
stadium.
site.
I haven't seen it yet. Like, I don't see the finished product of the stadium. Do we know they're building the stadium? Are they going to stay in Nashville? Are they moving?
You're a team shill for GB Joe.
That's right.
Vandy Joe.
Yes.
And now the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
Good on that's great use of your time.
Isn't that the job? I mean, that's the job I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
You just made the list.
That's impressive.
Thank you. Tex says trading Derrick Henry for a 3rd or 4th would have been a good idea, especially since you didn't keep him. Might have cost you another loss. You said that would have been a better in the draft order. I do think there are a lot of people who right now would be upset and like, I wish they did it. And at the time would have said something different if it was presented to you at the time.
Yeah. I don't know, man. If you told me 3rd round pick, I'd have probably been all over that last year. I mean, we were talking about 6th, 5th or 6th. I get it. It's Derrick Henry. So it's a different situation. But man.
Well, it's also, let's remember the trading deadline too. Like, what was their record? I mean, it wasn't
good.
It
but
wasn't
they weren't
looking
totally out
great,
of it. Yeah.
but it wasn't totally toast yet.
Right.
So now you think back on the season, it's like, oh, you think of like the whole season was toast. Well, that's not how it goes, right?
Right.
And in this league, even if you're hanging on by a thread, you can limp into the playoffs and catch fire. I mean, in 2019, I brilliantly wrote, there's a lot of criticisms that are very fair. I brilliantly wrote that it was over and they are out of the playoffs, and they made the playoffs. But it happens.
Okay, so that's what you just read off is pretty detailed reporting of the situation at the last deadline, right? Like you're talking about a trade framework that is agreed to, and goes on to say that people higher ups in the Titans organization basically vetoed it. Like that's a lot of information to have to just not be accurate.
I mean, that's what Eric DaCosta said.
Right. So again, I'm not saying that, we can just fully believe Eric DaCosta, everything he says at face value, but that's a lot of pretty interesting detail to have there. So like, why would Rand just act like that doesn't exist? Right. Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
I guess. Well, to me, my initial impulse was, okay, so Amy nixed the trade and doesn't want to look bad. She's looked bad enough with some of her decisions.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the whole point of this previous discussion. Being indecisive, thinking one thing really strongly, and then a few weeks later, you change your mind. That's kind of the point. So, okay, well, so Rand, you're going to have to go fall on the sword and say no. But if it wasn't her, I don't know. I think it's just it makes the organization look bad right now, and so you're going to deny it. I think you could probably, if you're Rand Carthon or the Titans, you also might be ticked off at Eric DeCosta for
Putting that out there.
Yeah, for putting that out there.
Yeah,
but he did. He did. I'm sorry.
He did it. That's just
like the idea that you don't know where it's coming from. You know darn well where it came from. It's right there, written out there for you.
I know. Like, again, I think I look at the moves that they've made this offseason, and I like a lot of what Rand Carthon has done on paper, right? Like, I mean, they've kind of rebuilt this roster in some ways, and they should be way more fun to watch. And everything about the hiring of Brian Callahan, I like to this point. We'll see how it all goes down. Some of the things he says sometimes, I'm like, okay. Like you got every single coach you hired was your first choice. Like all of them were your first choice.
Right.
I think we're sometimes just going a little bit too far with some of the stuff he's saying.
It's some exaggerating.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, a little bit of hyperbole there, I would say.
It's just.
By the way, you just recanted a Stilly segment right there.
Yeah, I did.
It's a Stilly kind of day on the program.
It's a Stilly day here on the program.
Gearing up for Jared versus Joe later.
5 o'clock. Taking your thoughts. 615-737-1025. Joe, before you take off to Titans training camp, a couple of things you'll be watching today or watching for today on the field as the Titans kick things off.
Yeah, I don't have any great deep cuts here. T'Vondre Sweat, I'm not going to guess his weight, but T'Vondre Sweat, how's he moving? We talked about in the spring before he got hurt. I thought he looked really good, like in the rookie minicamp and stuff like that. He was moving really well. I'm like, okay, yep, you can see it. Whatever his weight was, he was massive, but he looked nimble and he was moving really well. So definitely T'Vondre Sweat. I just think he's a huge key to this season. Levis, of course. Levis, the receivers, any sort of really good receiver DB confrontation we may get. I mean, is L'Jarius Sneed playing today? Is he starting right out on a program of management and not, or is he going to be out there today, lining up across from DeAndre Hopkins? L'Jarius Sneed, DeAndre Hopkins, which of course, I mean, that has happened in actual games. That is a dream combat catch matchup if we can get it. So those are the big things. Obviously who's where and things like that. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do today. Like, how are they going to get into some team stuff? Like, we're going to have any idea about where things start with the offensive line? A lot of stuff like that. There's plenty. And then there'll be some stuff that just comes out of nowhere and we can talk about tomorrow.
Hopefully Arden Key talks.
And then there's Arden Key. Yes. His love for Kuharsk.
Why do you hate Paul Kuharski so much? Where did that come from? We'll take your thoughts. 615-737-1025.
Can't wait.
It's our phone number.
Can't wait.
615-737-1025. Joe, have fun out there.
Have
a great time.
Appreciate it.
We'll have more on the Titans coming up next. Nick Keyser and myself. This week's Nashville's best deal is tickets to the
have to find out here in just a few weeks how this team looks. I do want to see how much different Callahan's approach is to playing the starters opposed to maybe what Mike Vrabel did in the preseason. But, Robbie, it's all fun and games until the ball is in the air, and that's not too far along from now.
Yeah, it looks like preseason you'll see more starters in there. Brian Callahan talked about that yesterday. So it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a different approach than we saw under the Mike Vrabel era as it relates to preseason starters, the playing time they get, and all those things. So we'll keep you updated on that as much as possible. Training camp beginning today on the field. We'll have you updated all day long on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chasing Big Joe is coming up next. They are live out at Titans training camp, so make sure you're tuned in for that. That does it for us today. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.